Star Wars. Wars! You got a wars over here. All right, we're going to go through. We're starting a little late. Thanks for your patience. You're sticking around. We were very excited in the beginning. We thought that big crowd waiting outside the doors was for us. But we're still excited to have each and every one of you. Star Trek or Star Wars?
Firefly.
There you go, Firefly. I don't have a slide. All right. Here we go. See if this works. Of course it's not going to work. Of course it's not going to work. Here. Make it work. Make it so.
Oh,
there it is. There it is. So this is Dr. Michael George. I'm Dr. Michael O'Connor, and we're pleased to have you here. We're going to talk about, we're going to have a little discussion. It's not a debate. It's not a debate. It's just a discussion. So, here we go. Star Trek, Star Wars. I'm going to turn things over to you. Yes.
So, which has the best heroes? Could it be the lone scoundrels, the goddess, or the wise man? That's me. No. The outsider, the Muppet, the traitor, the mystery, the fuzzball, or could it be the protagonists? So who has the best heroes? I want to hear from you.
Oh, go through the other ones.
Oh, we want to go through?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So for the Trek heroes, we have obviously the captains. The flying leg kick. The literary scholar. The mystic. The feminist. The quantum leap. Nobody got that. Or the others. We have all sorts of characters through this. We have Sulu, who actually has spawned his entire novel series, The Adventures of Captain Sulu. Riker, of course. We have Data. We have Worf. We have Spock. So what do you all think? Which franchise has the best heroes?
Yell out your answer.
Star Wars?
Why?
I like Yoda.
Yoda! Frank Oz.
Yes, the Muppets.
The Muppets.
I say Star Wars, especially with the release of the new movie, because I think there's a wider variety, and I mean, I'm coming from a somewhat biased standpoint because I've seen more Star Wars. Like, I've only seen like the new movies and some random episodes from different series of Star Trek. But with Star Wars, like, Personal Finn is an amazing character, and so is Rey, and Luke is okay. But like, Leia is also a little badass. So, I don't know, I just think Star Wars, I mean, the Muppet has
It's interesting that you raise the issue of not being that familiar with Star Wars.
It's interesting that you raised the issue that your generation is not as familiar with Star Trek, the original series, and even Next Generation. We're going back to the 80s, and for old folks like us, that was yesterday. But I got that in my science fiction course also. A lot of the students were much more familiar with Star Wars and therefore decided on the Star Wars side.
The Force. The whole reason. Force. The Force alone says it all.
Force, yeah, sounds like a physics presentation.
Careful. They could be in either one, but the Force is magic.
Fair enough.
It is magic. The question of whether this is actually science fiction or not.
Oh, that's right.
I would also argue it depends on how you're defining heroism, because I feel like Star Wars is a lot more about individual achievement, right? Through the Force, individuals. Even though the Force connects everything, it's always the individual hero. Whereas Star Trek, the emphasis is always on the team. Even when Captain Kirk or whatever is being a rebel, he's got his team with him. So different versions of hero.
All right, well, let's go forward. Be thinking about your favorite villain from either universe. Here's our list. Who has the best villains? Lizard dudes? Salt suckers? This has a lot to do with people in the 60s who saw these old original series. Greek gods, flawed gods, board queens, Kirk killers, planet killers. By the way, 10 years before there was a Death Star, there was a planet killer. I'm just saying. Young cons, old cons, Sherlock cons. So, we've got a whole list of villains here. Now let's take a look at another set of villains from a different universe. We've got feta cheeses, we've got grievous guys, we've got slow shooters. Wink. Yeah, all right, who shot first? We've got Jabba's and Hutts, we've got devil dudes, we've got miserable boffs, or vain Van Helsings. Hammer films, the old British Hammer films.
I also learned that he was Doctor Who in 2 films.
Oh, that's right, in a little film. And then Deadly Dooku's, another Hammer film star from the past. Evil emperors and sinful sons and bad dads. Vader. So, what do you think? Who's the best villain in whatever universe? Anybody want to give it a shot? Best villain? No opinion?
I'm gonna go with Star Trek on that one.
How come?
Again, I don't know a whole lot more about Star Trek than I do about Star Wars. But the villains in Star Wars are very, like the Emperor is an interesting villain, but like Vader and then Kylo Ren, like, I don't know, they both just seem kind of whiny to me.
Oh.
And they kind of, I mean, they do let their emotions kind of get the best of them, which obviously leads them to the dark side. But like, speaking from somebody who's only watched the new Star Trek that has Sherlock in it, like his motives were a lot more interesting than any of the villains that I've seen in Star Wars.
Fair enough. Well, he has motives, right? I think that's, the developed Star Trek, I would argue, because they are developed background, they have reasons, the Klingons, Khan, all of those guys at least have a story and a motivation for why they're being quote-unquote bad.
Right.
Whereas in Star Wars, they're just on the dark side.
How about the Borg and their quest to assimilate?
At least it's a motive.
That's true. And, to be fair, the Star Trek universe has a lot more screen time. A lot more screen time. A lot more development can go on there, whereas being limited to 2-hour movies is kind of stifling there. So we talked a little bit about this. We could talk about, we'll probably do this a little shorter than we had intended because our presentation got a slow start. But in the academic world, we talk about these universes. This isn't merely just for fun. There's all kinds of books published on both of these universes and many articles that academics have written considering the impact that Star Wars has had and Star Trek has had. We're going to talk about this in 2 ways, through social commentary and through major mythologies. On the Star Trek social commentary part, as many of you probably know, the Trek universe is really rife with all kinds of issues spanning race, gender, politics, and identity. So we have a program from the 1960s that was staffed with a multiracial international crew, including Africans, Asians, Russians, Scots, and even a Vulcan alien, all working side by side in, a picture of Gene Roddenberry's sort of universal harmony. That was big stuff in the 60s as we were progressing through society. We have racial commentary in episodes like Let That Be Your Last Battlefield, where of course we had the races broke in a very ironic way with people that were half black, half white, as you can see in a very visual manner. Probably the best line from that episode is Bella there saying, it is obvious to the most simple-minded that Lokai is of an inferior breed. He's white on the right side. All of his people are white on the right side. This was a real jab at the racism that was going on in the United States and around the world at that particular time during the rise of the Civil Rights Movement. We have commentary on in Plato's Stepchildren, what was sometimes billed, it's apocryphal, but sometimes billed as the first interracial kiss on a network program, but it ended up not being true, but it gets a lot of buzz. So Kirk and move forward there. We have comments on race, gender, where our captains, as we proceed through time and decades, go from pretty much white guys to African Americans and women. So breaking that command class ceiling. Sexual orientation is mentioned in a couple of Star Trek episodes. In The Outcast and Next Generation, we have a group a race that tries to be genderless. And in trying to be genderless, they ridicule and outcast and force to undergo psychological therapy those that try to obtain a sense of gender identity. This was when some programming was going on back in the 90s, and this was a commentary on that. And we had episodes with Jadzia Dax, where she's a symbiont, and the creature that is inside of her that shares her consciousness was once in a male body, now in a female body, so they did some interesting things with that. Cold War politics was going on when, in the 60s, when we had conflicts with the Klingons and Romulans, who were meant to represent the Soviet Union and the Communist Chinese. And we even had a little bit of identity politics going on when we talked about machines and holograms that assumed consciousness and had a real sense of identity. So more than a handful of episodes dealt with the idea of what does it mean to be conscious, what does it mean to have an identity, can a machine, if it's sophisticated enough, be truly, I'll just use the word human for lack of a better word. So a lot of these things were going on at this time, and Roddenberry, of course, envisioned a much lighter and brighter future in his Federation world, where there was much gender, racial, and economic equality. Dr. George.
Well, you probably noticed that Star Wars doesn't have a lot of social commentary. It's a different vehicle. You do have, unless you count the George W. Bush quote in Episode 3, "You're either for me or against me," or the death stick comment in Episode 2, which is obviously a reference to cigarettes. Rather, I'm going to be looking at Joseph Campbell's idea of the hero's journey. And this has been done before. I'm summarizing what a lot of different people have done. But what you have is, in Campbell, is the hero's journey. There's 3 steps. There's departure, initiation, return. And each level then has several different stages. What Campbell did was he went through world mythology. And he tried to, in a form of structuralist criticism, try to pull out what makes these myths from different parts of the world similar. And so what you get here is episodes within the films that definitely seem to correspond to this mythology. Under departure, on the left side, we have the call to adventure, refusal of the call, supernatural aid, crossing the first threshold, and then this belly of the whale thing. In a lot of this, there is this engulfing, there's this ingestion. You've got that for the call to adventure. Obi-Wan, you're my only hope. The refusal, Luke says to Obi-Wan, I can't go. I gotta help finish the harvest. I'm in big trouble as it is. The supernatural aid, you've got Obi-Wan rescuing Luke from the Sand People, but at threshold would be that blasting out of Mos Eisley Spaceport. And then the belly of the whale, quite obviously, that's running around the inside of the Death Star and showing that stormtroopers really can't shoot. The initiation part, and I'm bringing in all of the films for this because it's a kind of a stretch to get all of this from just the first film. And of course, this don't have to have all this. You've got a Road of Trials, which really is Jedi training. We get that with Luke in Episode 4, actually Episode 4 through 6, because he doesn't actually become a Jedi until the 3rd film. The meeting with the goddess, Princess Leia perhaps? Certainly Luke idolizes her in the 1st and 2nd, or I guess I should say 4 and 5, before he finds out that she's sister. Temptation away from the true path. This is the threat of the dark side that runs throughout. We've got Luke in the cave, confronting Vader, but there's always that temptation for the dark side. There's an atonement with the Father. Duh. I mean, the first 6 films are about that atonement, in large part. Developing Anakin into Darth Vader. Darth Vader's finally rescued. Apotheosis is sort of becoming godlike. The Jedi. I mean, Yoda can levitate an X-Wing, man. And then this ultimate boon occurs when the Empire is defeated. Now we're entering into a new series of films and prequels and that sort of thing, and I don't know how Disney is going to handle this. Whether Disney's going to handle it at all. But with the next 2 films set to come out, we'll see what happens with Rey and with Finn. And then we have the return. There's often a refusal to return. We have that at the beginning, throughout episode 7, Luke is missing. I mean, we're told he goes away, right? But then we also have the journey to Dagobah. After the Death Star, or after the Hoth incident, we'll read up at the rendezvous point. And Luke's like, no, I'm going to go to Dagobah. And so he refuses to return to the rendezvous point. There's a magic flight often, and by that we don't mean flapping arms and taking off necessarily. That is fleeing from something. You've got the escaping of the Death Star, from the Death Star, escaping the Cloud City. And then we also have really Luke's exile as well, his self-imposed exile. He flees from Kylo Ren. There's usually some sort of rescue from without. Han saves Luke from Darth Vader, saves him on Hoth, Lando saving Luke at Cloud City, Obi-Wan saving Luke in the desert would correspond to that. There's a crossing of the return threshold, so the destruction of the pursuing TIE fighters in episode 4, when they're fleeing the Death Star, escaping from Jabba would be another threshold at the beginning of episode 6, and then this freedom to live falls under return as well, and that's where the rebellion is victorious over the Empire. We still have vestiges we learn from episode 7, but the Republic in episode 7 is in place, at least until that planet killer gets it. And then there's some other things that occur here. There's typically 2 worlds in myth. There's the mundane world, that's the world we're standing in, right? And then there's some sort of special or supernatural world, which is the world that I'm living in wearing this costume. And you can see that we have that force, and then the other people who do not play games with the force. There's usually a mentor, and Obi-Wan is that mentor throughout, as is Yoda. There's a prophecy. He's the one who will bring balance to the Force. Well, it turns out that it's actually Anakin's son who's supposed to do that, so they read the prophecy wrong. Often a failed hero, and that's what we get with Anakin, certainly. Wearing the enemy's skin is a feature in mythology about disguise. And certainly we've got the disguised stormtroopers, Han and Luke. There's a shape-shifting figure that is a hero that may not be a hero. It's not certain you can trust him. We get that with Lando, we get that with Han as well. And then often there are animal familiars that run through mythology. And we've got Chewbacca, R2-D2, C-3PO, BB-88, right? So why am I giving you this? Silence. Sir?
No, I don't know.
Well, George Lucas was a huge fan of Joseph Campbell. He read all of his stuff up until he produced the films. And so this stuff Lucas purposely put into, especially episode 1 or episode 4. and then continue with that with the rest of the films that he was working with. Shall I turn it over to you?
We're gonna wrap this up. So once again, the idea behind this presentation is that there's a lot of fun associated with Star Trek and Star Wars, and having the debate on which is better, maybe which is not. But another aspect that is ever present about all these worlds, and really about anything from pop culture, is that you can take these things and bring them into academia and analyze them through certain lenses. And look at them in interesting ways. I think we'll sort of leave you with the idea, if you're interested in learning more about these things, maybe a good starting place would be Joseph Campbell's book, The Man of a Thousand Faces.
Hero of a Thousand Faces?
Yes.
There's another one called The Hero's Journey.
And The Hero's Journey, right. I have a number of academic books, Religions of Star Trek, Is Data Human, the Metaphysics of Star Trek, the Ethics of Star Trek, all of these people, PhDs, and the meaning of Star Trek, talking about its own set of myths and how they work. So the information is out there, the article's out there, you can Google a lot of this stuff for people that sort of get into these worlds. It's all kinds of interesting to people like Dr. George and myself. But we thank you for being here and listening to us for a little bit. Any final opinions on favorites or questions? Yes, sir.
Question. In the most recent Star Wars film, is Rey Luke's daughter? Do we know
No.
that fact?
Be careful what you read on the internet. I mean, it's been floating around on the internet. I'm pretty sure that Rey is not, although she could be related, because she seems to learn the Force on her own, doesn't she? She's sort of, sorry? She's got to be related to someone.
She was abandoned on the planet at the same time Luke left, right?
Right.
So there's some relationship there.
I would not be surprised if she were either Han Solo or Leia's offspring. That would actually set up another parallel with Episode 4, with the splitting up of the twins.
Ah. And so the twins were fighting each other then.
Yeah, that brings in some very interesting psychoanalytic Freudian stuff too. Yeah, but I don't think. I think that Disney Abrams set that up so people would think, oh, this has got to be Luke's daughter. I don't think it is. I mean, what
I
do you
heard
think?
speculation that she played up his granddaughter, which I don't know how to.
It could be. I mean, Jin Qui-Gon is the outsider. As we learn in Episode 1. He's not on the Jedi Council because he gives them a lot of lip.
Maybe one more question or observation. Yes, sir.
Well, during episode 7, when she's having her vision, when she touches Luke's lightsaber, you also hear Ben Kenobi's voice say Rey. That can also be put into consideration.
Yeah, that also has to be taken into consideration. I've thought a lot about that too. Could this be Kenobi's daughter? He certainly spent a lot of time alone in the deserts of Tatooine, right? Yeah.
The Force.
Yeah, that's right.
There you go.
Well, anyway, let's roll on.
Well, thank you very much for coming. It was our pleasure to talk with you. And enjoy the rest of the weekend.